All right, and you get to hear the buttery voice. We can't have a guest come on and not hear the buttery voice.
You didn't hear me try to make my voice buttery at the
No,
beginning?
you did your own voice. It was great. I mean, it was your buttery voice, but it wasn't my. It's a different...
A butter voice. Okay. Go, Mr. Butterpants.
1, 2. Here we are, and welcome to another episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast, where we invite you to be part of our family and speak the language of our family, which is movies and television and pop culture. And we are truly fortunate in this lightning round episode to have with us the incredibly talented, mind-blowing Shana Hagan, who, please go back and listen to the previous episode if you haven't heard it already. Just blew our minds, like took us to film school, and it was wild hearing about the amazing work that she's doing. But among the amazing work that she's doing is also the fact that she is an alum of one of our all-time favorite shows, Becky and Lil.
I mean, I watched it while I was in labor. While I was laboring my child, this is what I had on.
We watched it when our kids were born. This is the show that we will think about when we think about our kids being born, because it was the show that was on.
This is the show I refuse to see the last episode of, because it can't be over to me.
And that,
Wait, you've never seen it?
No, I won't see it. Like, I can't.
It's one of the greatest last episodes ever.
Like,
the greatest last episode.
To me, the show goes on.
And that show is, in case you haven't realized, is the one, the only Parks and Rec.
Yes, Parks
Right.
And so this is a show with, wow, yeah. This show is a treasure on so many levels. And you must know it if you were a part of it. But why I believe this show, and it's something that I believe firmly about any show that I love, why it is loved the way it is about those characters and how much you feel the love and love those characters back, and how much the show stayed true to the characters until the very last frame. So, Shana Hagan, question for you. As a cinematographer, as the window to these characters, what was your piece? What is the cinematographer's piece in giving us all that experience? Because we are so grateful for it.
Oh, I think on that particular show, I'm mainly a documentary cinematographer. On that particular show, I was one of the camera operators. So I wasn't technically like the boss of the camera department, but where I feel like the two camera operators, there was always two cameras because, in an improv situation like on Parks and Rec, there's often a take where there are certain lines or certain blocking that has to be captured like once. So you just, the magic happens or a joke or whatever, and it's always captured with two cameras. So I was one of the two cameras. And really, those camera operators, we were given a lot of liberty from the get-go to respond to or react to or feel a joke, or do a sort of a little punch zoom on. Oftentimes from the get-go, I asked, because I loved Nick Offerman so much, and he and I developed a visual sort of relationship. Not a visual relationship. What? Sorry?
I said get out.
Okay. Not
if I was in front of you right now, I would have lain you right now and just push you.
Nick kind of understood what I was doing. I understood what Nick was doing. And so there was a give and take between actor and camera that really worked. And I felt like oftentimes, I'd get the timing of his jokes or his little
which is crucial.
And I would push in, and then he would do it, or he would do it and I'd push in. So there was always like a give and take. And speaking of jazz, kind of a little bit of improv with the camera. So not the camera operators on that show, I feel like were given, I was impressed and amazed and grateful to have so much liberty to be able to kind of do and feel a scene as if I were shooting a documentary. So that was kind of encouraged. Again, the season one DP, my boss was Peter Smokler, who actually shot Spinal Tap. I was hired by him because of my documentary experience. And also I'd done a fair amount of scripted. So it was an interesting, not a lot of people have documentary and scripted experience. And so,
but isn't it supposed to be like a mockumentary a little bit, right? The show?
Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
They Office, like The Office, kind of.
The Office, exactly.
Right, which is why that hybrid of documentary and scripted experience is perfect for it.
But I think it's better.
Rare.
I like it the way it's better. I think it's better done in Parks and Rec because it's sort of like it wouldn't be, maybe it wouldn't exist in that style without The Office, but it jumps off from that and kind of doesn't take it as seriously and just uses it for good jokes. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like in Office, I think it evolved throughout the show, but then in Parks and Rec, they just went straight to like, we're just going to make this fun.
Right,
we don't care that it's not real, like obviously.
Right. We do like what we call spy coverage, if we're not supposed to be in the room, but we're like shooting through blinds or, past something. Like, if Ron Swanson's having a conversation with Andy about something, that's like, and we shoot through the blinds or whatever, that was always fun. So, those kinds of elements, also the interview sections, the sort of the formal interviews, and those were always fun to be able to kind of develop. But I also have to give a huge shout out to the writers on that show because speaking of character, like you were talking about how to connect or how we became to love, how we come to love these characters. I feel like it's the writing. It's certainly, and the performance. I think everybody sort of inhabited, and the group, the ensemble, everybody fed off each other in terms of their comic timing, or everybody's sort of character developed over the seasons. The other thing I really enjoy about the comedy is it wasn't really ever, they weren't mocking. There was never anything malicious. There wasn't anything that was spirited.
Except for
Shai, you have talked about that so many times.
Well, except for Jerry.
Well, no, but Jerry was an inside joke for the show, and they loved Jerry in the end. But wait, hold on, Becky. Come back to this point where you give me credit for things.
I have to...
Because I have big credit to give you in a minute.
So one of the reasons why Shai has said that this is such a beloved show and such a unique show is because you love all the characters and they're all nice, like they're all nice people and good to each other, and there's no Michael Scott, even like, okay, Michael Scott evolves, but there's no one on the show that's just kind of like weird and mean. Like you're rooting for everyone, and when you're rooting for them, it really, you get emotionally
they all like each other, except for their stick with Jerry, but within them there's no rivalries or wars or like
Leslie Knope. So I work in Washington D.C. and Washington D.C. can be a cynical place sometimes, and I think if you watch the TV show Veep, for example, most people in Washington will tell you Veep is the single most accurate representation of Washington, D.C. that's ever been put on film. More than West Wing or anything else.
Which is scary and sad, but yes.
But at the same time, as often as I hear that, the other thing I often hear is how many people in Washington see themselves as a Leslie Knope or have a shred, have a thread of Leslie Knope in them, and because the people here really do believe in her trying to do good, and Leslie Knope has become this like true icon for people who have dedicated their life to public service. Like I'll talk to someone who'll be like, "Oh, Leslie Knope's one of my heroes." So it's almost like the way Leslie Knope has the picture of Madeleine Albright in her office.
Right.
I think for folks from particularly my age group, but others in Washington, I wonder how many of us would put a Leslie Knope picture on our.
Well, she's just such an emblem
on our mantle, if we could.
For keeping you so true to yourself and your cause, and being so extreme in so many things that she's like a nutcase, but there's just so much love.
Well, I think there's a little bit of Leslie Knope in all of us, is what you're saying. And I agree that there's this sort of unwavering optimism that's like, nothing can, like, no, she's this is going to happen. There's like a faith and a trust. And, it's just funny how sort of sometimes clueless she is, that it's just, she just goes for it, and I think there's something in all of us that's like Leslie Knope. So, and
the show said to everyone, it's okay to unironically love that element of yourself.
Also, I was going to just say, like, the show, it says it's okay to love hard too. Like, the way that she feels about everybody in her life. It's like, I don't have that many friends, but I love them hard. And I'm like, and she loves everybody, but like, just like her and Anne and her, even in her and Ron, like, who's like, so his character is just so brilliant because it's the antithesis of her. but there's so much love there.
So we watched. So we went through IMDb before this, and we wanted to see like your credits and things. We did part of our research, and there were two particular episodes where again we took screenshots of your name in the credits.
And we're so excited.
And
so excited.
Not only that,
like
two of the most
Best
iconic.
episode.
I mean, there's probably a lot of people who would argue in the top 10, but
these are in the top 10.
These are the Park Safety and Fancy Party, two of the greatest episodes of that show. And Fancy Party in particular, if I recall, has some great ones, Ron Swanson in it in general.
Right.
But so anyways, I wanted to ask a couple of questions just about those episodes. Do you remember those episodes on their own?
Well, if I'm remembering, Park Safety's Andy Samberg.
Yes.
Right.
Is Andy Samberg.
And Jerry farts in the conference room. When I saw that live, like, what? It's when he bends over his pants strip. They're not allowed to make fun of him because Leslie's like, it's enough already. And they're dying. So, like, just the fart. Like, like, any fart joke I think is funny. So, like, in that sense, I'm an easy target. But then the shots of all of them trying so hard because they just want to, like, laugh at him and they can't is one of the best things I've ever seen on TV. I laughed for 20 minutes.
and then Fancy Party's the wedding, right?
Which is, again, when you talk about Heart, one of the most... The playing... I mean, this is maybe the final episode, but the playing of the song April Comes, She Will, the Paul Simon song that's over it at the end, it's truly a beautiful episode.
Right. So you're pulling those out because I got DP credit on those. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, at least IMDb told us. I mean, we're not saying IMDb is like scientific, but on those we saw your name in the credits and we took screenshots. We were so excited.
So I was a camera operator on several other like 70-something episodes, but those particular two, I was given DP credit.
No, I heard her. I heard her.
What?
70 something.
70 something. Amazing. It's like
it's fun. I mean, it's like literally one of the funnest jobs. I mean, I want to say one of the funnest job I have ever had. Those particular two, I have so many stories I could tell you. I'll let you ask questions, but those particular two, the DP actually directed, and so then we were all sort of brought up. There was 4 or 5 times in a season where the DP would direct, and so one camera operator would get DP credit, and the others would just fill in. So we all just kind of got bumped up. But in those particular two, I remember that was just those were definitely iconic episodes. And Fancy Party in particular, I think was so sweet because it took like a really beautiful moment. And I mean, there's funny and comic, but also was very sort of done very tastefully and real. And it was just like for these two silly characters to have a real moment, it was beautiful. It was lovely and funny and just, it's wonderful. I mean, again, the show is amazing to be involved with. I mean, I literally, I tell people honestly, at least once a day, you laugh so hard, you kind of pee in your pants a little bit. Like, okay,
we know very
exactly
well
what you're talking
very
about.
well on this podcast.
Like it got to that point where your face hurts because you're smiling and laughing so much.
But you have to be professional, though. You still or can you crack? You can't crack up, right?
You can't break. And there's one time Becky and I talked about this earlier that there was if you look in I think it's season 2, might be season 3 outtakes. There's some like the blooper reel I think you can see on YouTube or whatever. But there's one instance. There were a few, but one instance, of course, the other camera operator photographed me breaking. It was a scene in Ron's office where I'm like, I can't even remember the scene. Leslie comes in and talks to Ron about something, and it's a very typical thing. And Ron does one of these like, I don't know what it was. It was about rehearsal. He was doing something different, and I just broke, and I started laughing, and I was like, and I broke, and I needed to go reset, and we have a fairly large camera on our shoulder, and I was kind of like just laughing so hard, and I was embarrassed because normally we stay in character. We have to stay in character. We can't break.
Even if they break,
we kind of have to document it and kind of because it could be useful or whatever. I mean, and then I was going to reset, and I hit the
hardest job ever.
My camera hit the door, and then that like broke everybody else. And she was just, it was a funny moment, but certainly embarrassing for me. One thing I like to do, and it's like this is a horrible thing for me to say, but like the first summer I was on that show, or the first season I was on that show, I actually had found a dead I know this is totally a downer, but this is a funny story. I found a dead kitten in my front yard, and it was horrible. It was like there were some cats that like feral cats or something, and there was like somehow one of them had died, and literally was a teeny tiny little dead kitten. And I called the Humane Society, whatever, and I dropped it off, whatever, and it was horrible because I'm a cat.
You didn't call Harris and the other dude from Animal Control, is what
Animal
you're saying.
Control didn't come and take care of that.
No, but
sorry, I didn't mean to break the serious moment.
Going to work that day, I was kind of like, oh, wait, I could use this as a way to keep breaking. So whenever there was a really, really funny moment, I would think of the dead kitten, and literally it would zap the laughter out of my brain and out of my psyche, and it would zero my laughter out. It would literally calm me down. So I'd be like, dead kitten, dead kitten, dead kitten, So if somebody was really, Ron was Nick Offerman, and especially Chris Pratt when his characters started to take off, and even the first season, I think he was
to watch.
He was a guest star, I think, the first season, right? I mean,
and he wasn't as they didn't give him, he didn't shine as much.
Yeah, and then he just sort of blossomed, and then he was just one that would just. I mean, if you watch the outtakes, some of these outtakes, the one about, the Kim Kardashian outtake, I don't want to, it's hilarious. And to be able to be there and kind of not break and be able to, I often thought of the dead kitten.
It's a shame that guy's career didn't go anywhere, though, since the show.
I mean, he's kind of, down and flop.
Too bad.
So
they all have done really well. I mean, it's you look at the ensemble and everybody's,
that is true though. Like often, that is true. Like I feel like they deserve it. Like they are all so great, and they gave us this gift. And I'm sad that it ended, but I'm so happy that each have moved on to do awesome things.
So this is a big moment. So one of the other running bits on this show is called I Told You shows. And an I Told You show is when someone recommends a show to you and you watch it and it becomes something you really love or you really liked. And then you have to come on the podcast and you have to give that person an I Told You show and declare them a genius in front of everyone. And I watched the first season of Parks and Rec, which I did not catch. It didn't catch its zone, as most people will say. And so I didn't get back to it. And
right. Fair enough.
And then Becky tells me one day, you have to watch this show, you have to watch this show, you have to watch this show. And so she gave me the episode The Flu, and then I watched Camping. And
Camping.
Camping was really the one where I immediately fell in love with the show. And so Becky, my sister, you get a Mount Rushmore I Told You show. You are a genius, because lest anyone think that I came upon Parks and Rec honestly, I did not. Becky is the one who recommending it, and it is one of the all-time greatest shows of all time.
And then I give that to you, and I Told You show for getting me to watch it, because you were like, you have to watch the show. It's about a parks department. And I was like, what? I was like, why would I never watch that? You're like, no, it has Amy Poehler. You gotta watch it.
Well, you are both welcome.
And he
I am a genius.
He gave me Camping straight away to watch.
And
that's my intro episode for people.
And
then thank Shana for making it so funny.
Aww.
So thank you, Shana, for helping me become the queen of I Told You shows.
Becky is the queen. No one has won it more than Becky. She has like so many trophies of this that it's not even funny. Lily gets one like once a year.
Once a year. Do you have any quick or other stories or?
We're mindful of your time. We know that we're.
Yeah. I told you the dead kitten story. That was that's the way. That's always funny because it's honestly, and I still use that if I'm on I did a Maria Bamford.
We were watching that.
That is funny as heck. She's so amazing. And there were times when I was like, I need to stay. So I thought of a dead kitten. We told you about Nick.
What was Amy? Amy like?
What?
Amy?
Poehler? Amy?
Yeah.
She's amazing. I mean, I don't know what else. I'm trying to think of stories that, there were some of us that, trying to think of a good Amy Poehler story.
Not to put you on the spot. I just mean, or just
no. I mean, she was one. I moved on after 4 seasons to continue a ongoing doc project. So, but she was very insistent on inviting us, the people who were at the core. I started on the pilot and did 70 plus episodes or whatever, and so she wanted to make sure that all of us who were there from the beginning were on the 100th episode party. We're on the finale party. So.
Oh, wow.
and gave us, gave us the gifts that they gave everybody else. And so she wanted to include us. And that's definitely typical of Amy. She was very inclusive, very, very collaborative, incredibly generous, incredibly, just kind and nice. I think that show is reflective of her personality. I mean, it's from the top down. Her comedy, I always think, is just, again, this sort of not there's no mean-spirited comedy. I mean, it's silly and funny, but it's also, there's this sort of political undertones, there's activist undertones and all this stuff that she was sort of trying to, subtly push. But I like that it was just, again, this sort of very kind sort of leader that, I remember, well, I mean, there were times that, I'm trying to think of stories that wouldn't get me,
in trouble.
I was just going to say there's a story about Aziz that I remember. When Aziz was very obsessed early on. When the show started to gain a lot of popularity, he was getting a lot of followers on his phone, a lot of social media followers, and he was very obsessed with his phone. And there were times when, when we would just be both cameras rolling, everybody's ready, and Aziz was like, still on his phone, and even Amy was like, just let him, everybody just. And finally he looked up after a minute and was like, oh, you guys are ready? Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. And that was the one time when he did it, and Amy was the one who sort of pushed that, like, let's just let him, if he sees it, let him discover how much he's holding up production. So in that one instance, it was kind of a kind way to be like, instead of, the AD saying, Aziz, put your phone down, it was like, hey, do you realize that there are so many people? There's 30 people on set.
She's a good leader.
She's definitely a good leader. She's lovely.
That's amazing.
Rashida's just lovely. And, I tell one story about Rashida. Rashida is incredibly smart, very well prepared. And also she's so humble. I remember one time she had to leave early because she had a birthday. It was her birthday and she had dinner plans, and she had just said, oh, I'm going to dinner with friends. And so the next day we said, how was your dinner? Oh, it was great. It was great. And then we moved on and did the scene work and sort of did the day. And we find out later from her makeup artist that the dinner she went to, she said, oh, I was going to go to dinner and a show with some friends. And she didn't, and we asked her the next day, she said, yeah, it was great fun. And she didn't tell us about any of the details, but we find out from her makeup department later that she was actually having dinner and going to go see Beyonce and Jay-Z, who were her friends. Her father's down, so it has all these amazing.
That's not normal.
But those are her friends, certainly. But how humble she was, and she didn't want to make us feel, she wasn't name dropping or humble bragging, to use a Harris Whittle's word. Rest in peace, Harris.
Yeah, rest in peace. One of my favorites ever. I followed so much of his stuff, but yeah, rest in peace.
Rashida's fantastic. Chris Pratt is just incredible.
Well, Shana, we are so grateful for your time, and we could do 12 more episodes, actually 70, going episode by episode of every episode you worked on Parks and Rec.
Okay. But not enough time.
We are also.
But I have to say, I'm just going to interrupt you 1 second. It is a pleasure to know that somebody who worked on a show that we love so much can say just wholeheartedly that it was a great experience, because the worst would be to find out if you were like, great, but there are no buts, and that makes me super happy to know that you enjoyed it, and that's what made it so great.
Everybody on that show, honestly, is like a genuine person. They loved being a part of that. I mean, from Amy down, and all the cast, all the crew, all the it is.
Oh, and not to mention Mr. Schur, right?
Oh, Mike Schur is amazing. Yeah, incredible. And there's his Amish character, or whatever it was on the Office, if you remember that. But do you remember that?
Oh, right. Was he Mose?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, he's Mose. That's right.
On Parks or on Office?
On The Office.
No, on The Office.
But he was Dwight's cousin.
Dwight cousin.
Yeah. Yes,
that's amazing. I didn't even know.
But everybody from the top down, and that's one of the things I love about my work, and that finding a team. I like being a part of a team. I like the collaborative effort. And on Parks and Rec, it was the quintessential kind of group effort in the sense that it's not only a fantastic crew, but the cast, the production, everybody was kind of on board. The scripts were hilarious. Just a great time all around. I miss it tremendously. I've seen a bunch of people. I see Jim actually twice a year. I see Jerry. We have lunch now and then. I follow Retta. Her career is doing really well. It's it was a good show. So I'm happy to be involved. And, anytime I can talk about it, it's always
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're going to give you the last word on Parks and Rec, because otherwise we'll just keep going and you'll never leave. You'll just be here. They'll find you in your house, chained to the Skype machine. So with all that being said, how about does anybody have any Parks and Recs? Any other recommendations? Any other recommendations before we head on to
I'm going to
shoutouts?
recommend Spider-Man again because it's that good. So it gets a double recommendation. Spider-Man, what's it called? Enter the Spider-Verse? Into the Spider-Verse?
Into the Spider-Verse. And
Into the
I'm going to anoint...
When this stuff happens, I'm like, they should have picked a better title. Like, clearly, if the people can't remember the title, they made a mistake.
I want to use my rec to give Becky another I Told You show. Surprise I Told You show. Becky, for the Song Exploder podcast.
That was my rec. I typed that into the notes.
No, but the Song Exploder podcast... Oh, that's yours?
Yes,
but that was mine, too.
But
Wait, so you're both
you didn't
giving
put
me
your
another
name
I
next
Told
to
You
it.
show for Song Exploder?
I finally listened
So
to...
just because I don't put my name...
Try Not to Breathe.
You think that it's your one?
No, but it is one that I have. Try Not to Breathe. Becky's been trying to get me to listen to that since the summer.
Okay.
Since July. I've been trying to get you to listen to that episode since July. You finally listened to it.
Yep, it was amazing.
All right.
What about
Song
you?
Exploder.
I was
Great
gonna
podcast.
say I told you so to Becky, but she has so many, so it doesn't matter.
No, I like all my trophies. It's okay.
Shout out, a recommendation, for Song Exploder podcast, because it's really short. It's like 10, 15
Way shorter
minutes.
than this one.
Ours.
Yeah, shorter than our podcast. And it's fascinating to just hear about how a specific song come about and have the artist talk about the lyrics and the music behind it. And Becky recommended it to me for my plane ride, so I definitely pass it on.
Right on.
Shana, any other recommendations?
Festival World.
I think that I worked a little bit on Won't You Be My Neighbor, so if people haven't seen that film, I would highly recommend it, not only because I worked a little piece of it, I worked a little bit on it, but also it's a really great film.
Cool.
That would be my recommendation.
That's
Won't
awesome.
You Be My Neighbor.
All right, and shout-outs. I've got some special ones today. I want to give a shout-out to Matt Bergman. Do you remember Matt Bergman from camp? The sweetest guy. He got in touch with me over Twitter saying that he's listening to the show. He's recovering from surgery right now, and he's just binging all of Friday Night Movie from the beginning. And he's been tweeting at us about individual episodes. And Matt, we're sending you all of the love. One of our dear camp friends. So lots of love to you. And then I want to give a shout out to an amazingly talented singer named Kathy DeToro, who is one of the lead singers in the Leg Warmers. She's also in a 2000s music tribute band called So Fetch, which is a great reference to Mean Girls. And she also is in her own band that does original music, ska band called Party Like It's. And she is a tremendous frontwoman and singer and talent, and also just super nice person. And so a big shout out. If you're in the DC area, you should check out any one of the bands that she is in, and you can follow her on Instagram, Kathy DeToro, or the Leg Warmers, or So Fetch, or Party Like It's. Any of those, amazing. Go for it. Becky, shout outs?
No, I only had one shout out prepared, and I did it on the earlier segment. Sorry.
Okay.
You already got your shout out.
My quick shout out is to the fact that I had to take multiple flights to get to the United States, and in a very rare situation where an airline actually does something good that they're supposed to do, I was delayed and nearly missed my connection. And I was so delayed that I was waiting for my kid's stroller to be taken out, the gate check. They were so damn slow because probably we were in Spain, and that's why. And I had to leave the stroller behind, just peace out, and just started running to my next gate and figured I'd never see it again. And it was worth it. I was gotta leave a man behind in this situation. And I was amazed to find out that 24 hours later they delivered it to my final destination, which
Right on. For once, an airline doing something right.
Exactly.
What airline?
It was American Airlines. Thank you, because I'd never actually said it, so that was a bad shout out. So thank you, American Airlines.
You shout out like you tweet.
Didn't they recently crash a couple planes, or someone fact check me?
Oh, you're.
I feel like
the
that's
shout
not
out is
correct.
I'm not
Becky.
sure if that happened, but I will say that I left a stroller randomly on a tarmac back somewhere, and they got it to me. So thanks.
All right.
All right.
Sorry, Shai, you might edit my
You're like
My
weird
anti-ship.
accusation of
Defacing of American Airlines.
Becky. Where can people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at PaperBKPrincess. Yes, I look forward to hearing from you.
And
So tweet at me.
and Shana, our esteemed guest, where can people follow you?
First, my shout out to Becky, Lily, and Shai for having me on the show. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. And people can reach me, see my work, and contact me on my website. It's shanahagan.com, and that's ShanaHagan.com.
Cool. I am Chichi K. Gomez on Twitter,
And
even though I don't know how to use it.
And again, thank you to Shana for being here. You can follow me at Pancake for Table on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow all of the Pancake and Friday Night Movie shenanigans at pancakefortable.com and FridayNightMoviePod.com. And Becky has something that she'd like to add.
Sorry, I have a last minute shout out. I just got a text from my friend Cheryl and Andrew.
I sure hope this has to do with Riverdale. Oh, okay.
No,
Baby.
she had a
Live?
baby. No, she just had a baby. So shout out to Cheryl and Andrew and baby Isla. Welcome to the world. We love you. Sorry, it was just it was a 911 shout out. My phone just.
That sounds amazing. I wish it was Cheryl Blossom texting you, but that's cool.
But maybe one day.
So rate and review us on iTunes or any of the places that you listen to podcasts, and catch up with us. We have a table at the All-Star Comic-Con in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. It's going to be amazing. All the guys there are planning just an incredible weekend for people on June 7th, 8th, and 9th. And with that, the music of What Does It Eat will kick in, and we will dance our way into the evening. Dance, dance, dance.
Dance, dance, dance.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love you guys.
Did you work at all during the Ben Schwartz, John Ralphio era?
Yeah.
Because he's one of my favorite, acting humans. I think John Ralphio is one
Jenny
of the.
Slate too.
Yeah, what about Jenny Slate?
The two of them together.
Were you there for the?
That was late.
Mona
That was
Lisa
very late,
days?
though. That
Mona
was
Lisa might have
the
come
fifth or
later.
Just a couple episodes, but I remember, it was like the Entertainment 360 or 3.
Yes.
720.
Entertainment
Entertainment
720
720 is one of the
Right.
funniest
720.
things ever created.
And I'm a huge Jenny Slate fan.
But she didn't come until later, Becky.
Yeah, I have one of those
John Ralphio.
Entertainment 720, they made money. We if you remember, there was a clear toilet filled with money or something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. And they just had the basketball players shooting hoops in the corner.
Yeah.
At that party, at their launch party, they spend all their budget, their entire budget for their company.
I mean, we had the most amazing, most amazing guests. I mean, we had Fred Armisen, we had Will Forte, we had
Sister Cities. We're going to go watch that right
you
now.
had Henry Winkler.
Henry Link was after I left, but also my absolute favorite was Carl Reiner. If you remember, he was they were doing the senior vote. They were
yes.
Went to the senior, she's running for city council, right? And she needs to get the senior vote, so she goes and talks to the guy.
No, it's you. Sorry, Lily pulls out the earphones every 2 seconds.
There's so many chords here.
So Carl Reiner,
you don't have to sit on them.
Funny. I mean, he's 90 or something. He was
old,
and he just was kind of hot, got into his position, but knew his lines. Completely hilarious. His comic timing was amazing, and Andy Samberg. We had tons of guests. It was really amazing. I mean, Rob Lowe when he came on the show, everybody was kind of a little
I was going to ask you. I mean, I was going to ask you
funny
privately,
stuff,
but
come on, he's in Tommy Boy, he's in Wayne's World.
I can tell you, Nick Offerman is a nice person. I can tell you, Amy Poehler's a nice person. Chris Pratt for sure. But I'm like, Rob Lowe, that's a wild card.
Rob
yeah.
Lowe is a human. He is amazing.
I'm so glad to hear that, but I wouldn't automatically assume. I feel like
he lives in Santa Barbara because he wants to have a good work-life balance. He surfs almost every day, apparently.
I surf. Rob Lowe and I could be friends.
He is so genuine and so sweet and so nice, and one that's so prepared. and so dedicated to his character.
Oh my god, his character though, I remember
in the flu episode.
That was like also like a great departure for him, because while he's done comedy, like it reminds me more of like it's just his Wayne's World character.
Yeah, he was villain. He was villains in other things.
But like in this, he's just so annoyingly nerdy and like insane that it was great.
The turkey burger.
Literally.
The turkey burger.
The turkey burger. The burger.
Literally, right? No, was it literally?
Yeah.
Is that his...
Literally. You are literally my favorite person right now. Literally.